My name is Lisa Romero. I'm 51 years old. Over the past 17 years, I have gone through a long and challenging journey with Brightway Markets, one of the largest retail chains in California. During this time, I've worked in various positions, starting as a regular sales associate and eventually becoming a senior operations lead. Currently, I am responsible for managing store number 137, our flagship location right in the heart of Sacramento. This store is not just a retail outlet, it's a small world with its own history, traditions, and a team that I've come to consider my second family. At Brightway Markets, store number 137 has always been exemplary, a place where newcomers come to learn and where best practices are developed before being implemented in other branches. Here, every employee knows that their contribution matters, and work is recognized based on merit. I started my career when my daughter was still in elementary school. Back then, working at Brightway Markets was not just a source of income, it was an opportunity to build my future, support my family, and put my ideas into practice. I remember how difficult those early years were. Learning, mastering my duties, and taking on more responsibility. But over time, my efforts began to pay off. One of my key achievements was reducing the store's shrinkage by nearly 18%. This was a significant success because previously, due to errors in inventory and theft, we were losing a considerable amount of merchandise. Together with my team, I reviewed the inventory system, introduced new control procedures, and conducted employee training. These changes helped not only save the company money but also improve overall operational efficiency. In addition, I was actively involved in staff training. Over the years, I have mentored and trained half of the current team, helping young professionals settle in and grow. I have always believed that a strong team is the foundation of a successful store. Thanks to this approach, we managed to maintain a stable and friendly workforce despite all the challenges and changes in the industry. My family has always been my support and strength. My daughter grew up seeing how hard and responsibly I approached my work. We often talked about what it means to achieve goals, not be afraid of difficulties, and never stop striving. This support gave me the strength to keep going, even when the road seemed too tough. I always tried to balance my professional achievements with my personal life, although it was sometimes difficult. Many times, I missed family dinners and celebrations to handle urgent issues at the store or help colleagues prepare for important inspections. But I believed that this effort was worth it for the future, not only of myself but of the entire team. So, it was in this store, with this team, and under these circumstances that my story began, a story that forever changed my life. A story about how, after nearly 2 decades, I faced an unexpected challenge. Being fired just one day before I was supposed to retire. But there was also some irony and even laughter when I learned the real reason behind it. It all started with a short message on my phone. It was from Derek Wilkins, our store's general manager. The text was brief and strange. Need you in the conference room, as soon as possible. No greeting, no explanation, no hint of why. Just those 4 words. I looked at the screen and felt something tighten in my stomach, a strange, painful feeling that was more than just anxiety. Over my 17 years at Brightway Markets, I had received plenty of similar messages, invitations to meetings, sometimes unexpected, sometimes urgent, but this time felt different. Something in the tone, the emotionless way it was written, the lack of the usual hello, all of it stirred unease inside me. My mind immediately started recalling previous moments like this. The time I was called to a meeting about a new restructuring plan, another time when I was asked to stay late to sort out an inventory issue, how a colleague was warned about layoffs. I knew these kinds of messages could mean many things, and not always good ones, but I tried to keep calm. Panic never solves anything. As I walked down the store corridor toward the conference room, my coworkers greeted me with smiles and friendly words. Jaime from electronics nodded and gave me a thumbs up. We had recently run a successful promotion, and his department had shown great results. Julia from accounting wished me luck, and young Katie, whom I had recently been mentoring, threw me a quick glance and said, "I hope everything goes well, Lisa." Despite all this support, the uneasy feeling inside me only grew stronger. I noticed that something in the atmosphere had changed. Our meetings usually took place in an open and friendly environment, and the conference room door was almost always open. But today, it was tightly shut, and that simple fact somehow made me feel very alone. I tried to focus, took a deep breath, and reminded myself, "You can handle this. You're strong. You've earned this moment." But my heart was pounding louder and louder, and I knew this day was going to be nothing like the ones before. I slowly opened the door to the conference room. Inside stood Derek Wilkins, our general manager, a young man just over 30, always reserved and a bit tense. Patricia from HR sat nearby, cold and formal as always. Between them on the table lay a folder that immediately caught my attention. "Have a seat, Lisa," Derek said without much warmth, not taking his eyes off the window. I obediently sat down, folding my hands in my lap, trying not to show how fast my heart was pounding. "We've conducted a review of the organizational structure," Derek began, his voice dry and businesslike, "and have concluded that your position no longer aligns with the company's current business needs." Patricia slowly slid the folder toward me. "Your salary is too high compared to your contribution," she continued, not looking up. I tried to process what I had just heard. Over my 17 years at Brightway Markets, I had poured my heart and soul into this company. I led my department, optimized processes, and implemented new systems that reduced losses by nearly 20%. My recent audits had been flawless, and my department consistently ranked in the top 5 in the region. Why was I being fired? "I don't understand," I said, my voice trembling but trying to keep calm. "My last performance review was excellent. Everything I've done has delivered results. Why am I being let go now?" Derek seemed to avoid meeting my eyes. "The decision was made at the executive level," he replied briefly. There was a nervousness in his voice, as if he wanted to get this conversation over with quickly. I knew he was a young manager brought in with the initiative to refresh the leadership team. Over the past 2 years, he had pushed out several longtime employees' experienced staff who, like me, had devoted years to the company. His style was harsh, cold, and unapologetic. Deep down, I felt the injustice, but I kept my composure on the outside. I smiled not out of weakness, but with confidence in myself and my truth. This was not the end, but the beginning of something new. They thought they were closing a door, but in reality, I was already standing at the threshold of new opportunities. Patricia handed me the paperwork to sign. "Thank you for your contributions, Lisa," she said, and I believed she meant it. I took the pen, signed the documents, and stood up calmly. Derek looked noticeably relieved, as if he expected me to cause a scene, and I didn't. I walked out of the room feeling that something greater awaited me ahead. After leaving the conference room, I paused in the hallway for a moment to collect my thoughts. Years spent at Brightway Markets, store number 137 in Sacramento, flashed through my mind like the pages of a book, each chapter filled with trials, worries, and small victories. I remembered the beginning of the pandemic, when everything around plunged into chaos. Supplies dwindled quickly, deliveries were delayed, and employees were afraid to come to work because of the virus. I took responsibility, rearranging shifts, organizing extra safety training, personally calling suppliers to ensure the arrival of critically needed products. It was tough, nerves were on edge, but the team held strong. We kept the store open, and despite everything, our service level didn't drop. Another vivid memory: the holiday seasons, when customer traffic doubled. It's hard to imagine how many hours we spent on our feet, solving issues with registers, out-of-stock items, and unhappy customers. Often, I stayed after hours to personally help cashiers or managers sort out inventory. Those days were exhausting, but when morning came after the Christmas sale and I saw my colleagues' smiles, I knew it was all worth it. Over the years, I nurtured a whole generation of young employees. I remember Jamie from electronics, who once timidly approached me with a question. Now he's one of the best managers, someone I'm proud of. I invested in everyone willing to learn, trying not only to explain technical details, but also to offer moral support and help them believe in themselves. But the contrast between me and Derek, my current manager, was too stark. While I was building a team and investing in people, he systematically pushed out all the veterans, those who knew the store and its customers inside and out. In 2 years, he fired Thomas from the warehouse, who had worked there for 22 years, and Catherine from customer service, a woman with 30 years of experience who broke down from constant stress. His management style was harsh, ruthless, focused on cutting costs even if it meant losing invaluable experience. And here I was, the last of the old guard. My salary earned through years of hard work and success suddenly became a liability. They thought I was too expensive, even though I was a guarantor of stability and growth. I took a deep breath and smiled, not as a sign of surrender, but as a challenge. This story is far from over. A few days after my dismissal, while I was still trying to make sense of what had happened, my phone suddenly vibrated a new email from Vanessa Torres, Vice President of Regional Operations at Haven Mart. The message was short but very important, an invitation to a meeting at the headquarters in San Francisco. I took a deep breath, my heart beating faster. This was completely unexpected. Vanessa wanted to discuss my future with the company. For all these years, I had worked at store number 137 in Sacramento, and although leaving the store seemed like the end, this email gave me hope. The next day, I got into my car and headed to San Francisco. The drive passed quickly, my mind raced, as I tried to imagine what awaited me. At the Haven Mart headquarters, I was warmly welcomed. Vanessa, a woman with a confident and kind gaze, immediately made me feel at ease. With her was Jeremy Phillips, the chief operating officer, young but clearly experienced, who listened attentively to every word. "Lisa," Vanessa began, "we have been closely watching your work at store number 137. Your initiatives to optimize processes and train staff have made a strong impression on us." Jeremy added, "Especially important is how you managed to reduce staff turnover and build a team that works smoothly and effectively. That's a rarity in retail." I felt pride swelling inside me. Over the years, I had always tried to do my job conscientiously, and finally, it was being noticed. Vanessa continued, "We are planning a restructuring of regional management and would like to offer you a new position, regional director overseeing 15 stores in Northern California, including your Sacramento store." I couldn't believe my ears. Excitement and surprise flashed in my eyes. "That's a great responsibility," I said, "but I'm ready to take on the challenge." They smiled, and Vanessa handed me a folder detailing the duties and terms of employment with a salary almost twice as high as my current one. At that moment, I realized this was not just a new job, it was recognition of my contribution and a chance to make things better. Returning to Sacramento, I stepped once again into store, where I had spent nearly 2 decades. Inside, I was filled with determination. My new position was close, but officially, I was still responsible for this store. I continued working as usual, meeting with department managers, handling inventory issues, supporting the team. This was my home, and I wasn't going to leave without finishing what I started. However, the atmosphere in the store had noticeably changed. Derek Wilkins, the general manager who had recently fired me, was now openly watching me with suspicion and even hostility. I caught his gaze several times as he scrutinized my reports and email correspondence. One day during lunch, Julia from accounting quietly said to me, "Lisa, Derek is literally hunting you now. He's reviewing every signature, every expense approval, trying to find something to accuse you of or discredit you." I sighed. This wasn't news to me. Derek had long been trying to push out all the experienced employees who might threaten his authority. In the past few months, several veterans had already been fired or forced out. Thomas from the warehouse, who had worked here for 22 years, was suddenly transferred to another department where his responsibilities were drastically reduced, and after a couple of weeks, he quit feeling unwanted. Catherine from customer support, who had devoted almost 30 years to the company, was put under a strict performance improvement plan. The demands were so impossible that after 3 months, she was forced to resign voluntarily. I realized that I was the last veteran still holding my position, and now Derek saw me as his primary target. His attempts to discredit me only strengthened my resolve. I knew that soon everything would change. The day of my dismissal arrived. I walked into the store with my usual calm, as if it were just another ordinary workday. When I was called into the conference room, I already knew what they were going to say. Yet still, when Derek and Patricia from HR handed me the folder with the documents, my heart clenched for a moment. I looked at the papers, everything official. Termination due to misalignment with business needs and excessive salary. I smiled. Not because I was happy, on the contrary. It was a smile of inner triumph. The triumph of someone who knew the real victory was still ahead. Calmly signing the papers, I stood up and, before leaving the office, looked Derek in the eye. His face showed relief. He thought he had won. But I knew better. His role was about to change, and my future was something completely different. As I exited, colleagues greeted me. Some tried to hide their surprise and sympathy, others simply stayed silent. I knew many of them felt for me but were afraid to openly show support. In situations like this, it's important to keep your dignity and composure. Later that same day, after work, I received a call from Vanessa Torres, the Vice President of Regional Operations. "Lisa." Her voice was warm and confident. "We're ready to announce your appointment as Regional Director. This is the beginning of a new chapter." I called my daughter. "Mom, you did it!" she exclaimed joyfully. "I always knew you deserved more." Her words warmed me. At that moment, I realized that despite the injustice and difficulties, everything was falling into place as it should. Remembering Derek and his attempts to destroy what I had built over the years, I suddenly laughed. A laugh not at him, but at the whole situation. At a system that sometimes feels unfair but isn't eternal. At the fears and doubts we sometimes create ourselves. That laughter freed me. It transformed feelings of hurt and disappointment into strength and confidence. I decided I would move forward with my head held high, to believe in myself, value my achievements, and never let anyone define who I am or what I am capable of. The path to justice isn't always straight. But I know this: if you stay true to yourself and your principles, success will come. And may this laughter become a symbol of freedom for me, freedom from fears and doubts, freedom to be myself, and to fight for my place in the sun. After everything that happened to me, I realized one very important thing. Life and work aren't just a set of circumstances beyond our control. It's how we respond to those circumstances, and the kind of person we choose to be despite everything. I was fired just one day before my retirement. It was a blow that could have broken anyone, but I decided not to let the situation define me. Instead, I took responsibility for my emotions, my future, and my dignity. That was my first and most important lesson. Professionalism is not just about doing your job. It's about maintaining calm and respect for yourself and others, even when the situation is unfair. When I was called into that ill-fated conference room, I could have lost my temper, argued, blamed, but I chose the path of calmness and confidence. And that helped me come out of the situation victorious. The second lesson is to never underestimate the power of support from colleagues and loved ones. Throughout my career, I had a team I could rely on and people who believed in me. Even when some of them stayed silent out of fear, their small gestures of support gave me strength to keep going. When I received my new position, the joy and congratulations from family and colleagues became real proof that everything was worth it. I also understood that it's important to fight for your rights, but to do so wisely and respectfully. Sometimes the world is unfair, and those who try to take away what we deserve think they've won. But the real victory is to keep your integrity, your honor, and to move forward, opening new doors. I want to speak to those of you who are facing difficulties at work or in life right now. Don't let injustice break you. Keep your dignity, stay professional, and remember, your efforts and achievements matter. Never give up, and don't be afraid to ask for support. Life sometimes presents challenges that seem insurmountable, but every challenge is a chance to become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. If you learn to see hardship as an opportunity for growth, you can turn any adversity into new success. I'm grateful for everything that happened, even for being fired. It became a push toward a new chapter, new opportunities, and recognition of my work at a higher level. And finally, I believe in the end, justice will prevail. The key is to believe in yourself, stay honest, and not be afraid to move forward, even if the path seems difficult. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it inspires you not to give up and to fight for your place in this world with pride and dignity. Remember, each of us deserves respect and the chance to show our best. Ahead lies only a bright future if we are ready to walk toward it with an open heart and a clear mind.